everyone, it's Hailey, and today is Bookmas Day 14, so I'm going to be talking about the most hyped up books of 2021. So before we get into the video, don't forget to click that subscribe button and click the bell icon so you'll be notified whenever I post. I'm posting a new video every single day for the entire month of December, and I will also have the Bookmas playlist linked down below for you guys, just in case you have fallen behind or anything. So I have done this like most hyped books of the year video for a few years in a row now, but this year is particularly interesting because I have never felt so out of touch with what people are talking about in terms of books. Like I mean in terms of life in general, but like a lot of the books that you guys sent to me, I had never even heard of. And I think a big part of this is because of TikTok. A lot of these books I would imagine are hyped up on BookTok, and I'm not on TikTok, and like I don't watch TikTok at all. And I'm also not on Twitter, so I don't see like all the books that are being tweeted about. Really, my source is Instagram, and I haven't been on Instagram all that much either. So basically, like a lot of these, I just out of absolute left field. That makes it a lot more interesting though. So if you aren't familiar with this video, essentially what I do is on Instagram, I'll ask you guys what book you heard about the most in 2021. And I feel like that gives me a good idea of what books have been hyped up and talked about the most. Because the thing is, what you think is really hyped up is probably different than what I think is hyped up. Because, you know, like I said, I'm not on TikTok. So like we hang out in different centers of the like bookternet sphere, so you get like a really well-rounded book when, you know, I ask you guys. I just said book, I meant a really well-rounded look at things when I ask you guys, and I just find it fascinating. So without further ado, let's just get into this list. So easily the most mentioned book when I asked you guys which were the most hyped up books of 2021 was The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. So I think that the hype for this one started on TikTok, but I did actually pick it up because I'm planning on doing a reading vlog where I read a couple of TikTok recommended adult romances. So if you have any other recommendations, you can leave them down below. But I think that this one seemed to be like the most hyped up. I don't know, like it just has been everywhere and all of you guys mentioned it, so I definitely agree with that. But this adult romance is about a PhD candidate who her best friend wants her to get into dating, so then she like kisses the first guy that she sees, but he ends up being like not a good guy. So then she's trying to get into a fake dating relationship to like get her friend off of her back. So the lab tyrant agrees to it and they start a fake relationship. It's very interesting. Like this is a combination of two tropes. Fake dating I really love, but enemies to lovers not a huge fan of. And it seems like it's going to be an interesting combination though. But I think it's extra interesting because the second most mentioned book was The Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armas. I'd actually never heard of this book before, but then when I was looking it up, the cover does actually look familiar. I think I just like, I don't know, for some reason it kind of flew under my radar, but I think I'll also pick this one up for that reading vlog that I mentioned wanting to do. But I think it's very interesting because this one also features fake dating and enemies to lovers. It's about a girl who's going to Spain for her sister's wedding, and she is trying to find a guy to go with her to like be a part of this ruse to get her family off of her back and say that she's dating someone. But she couldn't really find anyone, and the only guy that she can find is one that she doesn't really get along with. I really haven't like seen this book, so I don't know what the reviews are. Obviously, if it's hyped up, I would imagine that they're good, but I'm gonna have to check it out. Next is Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. This actually was on my most hyped books of the year list last year because TikTok cannot get enough of this book. And I actually have it, so I will read it at one point. But it is about Achilles, and it's a romance story, a Greek romance story. I think it's also tragic. I really don't know that much about it. I just know I have heard amazing things about it, and I have been seeing it for like the past 2 years now. It has been so recommended. I think think I kind of have been hesitant to pick it up, like actually read it myself, because I wasn't the biggest fan of Cersei, so I don't really know how I would feel about this one. But I do know that everyone seems to really, really love it, and I guess there must be a reason for that. Next up is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So Taylor Jenkins Reid is the author of Daisy Jones and the Six and Evelyn Hugo, and I actually found it really interesting. I mean, she has a lot of other books apart from those. Those I would just say are her most popular, but I found it really interesting. Quite a few of you responded with Evelyn Hugo as a book that you kept on hearing about this year, but I didn't see Daisy Jones and the Six as much. So it seems to be that like Evelyn Hugo has the longevity and TikTok seems to really enjoy Evelyn Hugo. But Malibu Rising is actually her latest release, and I haven't picked it up myself yet just because I wasn't sure if I would like it, so I'll kind of have to look more into the reviews and see if it will be something that I'm interested in, because I just tend to enjoy historical more. And I mean, this is kind of historical because it's set in the 80s, but I don't know, for some reason this one just, I didn't pick it up. It is about famous siblings though who throw this epic party, and it's 24 hours that is going to change everything. I think that's why, like, I like the fact that it's siblings and throwing an epic party and that they're famous seems really interesting, but other than that, I'm kind of like, I don't really know what to expect. Next is Dune by Frank Herbert. Is it Hebert or Herbert? I can't remember, but this definitely has been talked about a lot because of the recent release of the movie. It is a sci-fi epic, and I haven't read it, haven't seen the movie. I'm not that into sci-fi, so I don't really think this is one that I will personally go for, but I do know that it's one of like the most famous traditional classic sci-fi. Also, Zendaya was in the movie, but apparently she was only in it for a little bit, and I can't remember who else was in the movie, but it definitely has been talked about a lot. Next, quite a few of you also mentioned Aquature by Sarah J. Maas. So this book obviously was also on the list last year, and I kind of thought it was just like a passing thing because I found that a lot of the books that TikTok were recommending were like books that had a lot of popularity on BookTube a while ago, which I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. It's just really interesting to see the trends and how they evolve there. But Aquature seems to be one that like stands still. Throne of Glass wasn't really mentioned as much, although Sarah J. Maas as an author as a whole has been mentioned quite a bit, but Aquature definitely is one that TikTok seems to not be able to get enough of, so I feel like this is just going to be a most hyped book of every year. I can't remember actually if A Court of Silver Flames came out this past year. I think it did, but that probably has something to do with the series still being talked about so much. Next is The Midnight Library by Matt Haig, and my sister actually read this book, and I had seen it and just, I don't know, it was kind of like on my radar, but not really. But then when I was like taking notes for this video, I thought it seemed so cool because I had never actually looked into what the synopsis was. But between life and death, there's a library, and every book in it has a chance to try another life that you could have lived. So like essentially it has all the decisions that you've made, and you can see how your life would end up if you had made a different decision. I just think that seems so fascinating. Like, I'm really intrigued by that, and I think I might have to add this one to my wish list. Next is Still the Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab, which I still haven't read, but when this book came out last year, it was like the most hyped up book of the year, and in my opinion, it's died down a little bit, but it definitely is one that a lot of you guys still mentioned as being talked about a ton, so had to include it in this video. If you don't know, it's about this girl who she makes a deal with the devil to live forever, but in exchange for that, she will be forgotten by everyone she ever meets. So it's definitely like a hook of a storyline. It's just one I haven't gotten the chance to read yet because I've heard it's kind of slow, and that has kind of kept me from reading it, but I will. Next, a lot of people just said the Grishaverse in general, which is the books by Leigh Bardugo, which I definitely agree with. Grishaverse books have been so hyped up, and once again, it's because of the adaptation that came out this last year. But I am so excited that they're getting talked about more. Not that they were ever like not popular, but they're becoming a little bit more mainstream, and it's really nice to see Leigh Bardugo having such success. Like, they're amazing stories, and I'm so glad that more people are being exposed to that whole universe because it is so great. Next is Lore Olympus, and I I kept on seeing this book, but like I didn't really know that it was a book. I don't know if that really makes sense, but it's actually a graphic novel that started as a webtoon comic, and now I think it said like volumes 1 to 25, or I forget what the specific word is, but it has been released as like an actual book, and I think I'm gonna have to check it out because it does seem really interesting, and there has been so much hype surrounding it. Obviously, that's why it's included in this video, but it is a story about Hades and Persephone falling in love, so very classic and seems intriguing. Next is From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I think that this book was talked about quite a bit because of TikTok last year, but I also, like, she has come out with the books for this series so unbelievably fast. I think there's already like 4, and the first one was published in 2020. So I just am like so confused as to how she has been able to do that, and it's made the timeline for everything very confusing. So I don't know if this one was really hyped up last year and has also carried into this year, or if I'm just like getting my time mixed up, because my time this year has been very confusing in general. But I do actually have this book because it's one of the ones that I wanted to read for a vlog where I try out TikTok reads. So I will try and get to it. It is a fantastical romance, and that's all I really know about it. So we'll see. Next is a book that I had not heard of at all until this like question box, and a lot of you guys said it, so I had to look into it, but I literally have never heard of this book, because a lot of times if I haven't really registered that I've seen the book, I can, at least when someone tells me the title, I can picture the cover roughly. So even like The Spanish Love Deception, I could picture the cover roughly because it kind of rang a bell, but for this one, absolutely nothing, had not heard of it at all. So The Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake, it is about this like Alexandrian society. So it's caretakers of the lost knowledge from the greatest civilizations of antiquity. And it's this secret society of magical academics, and you're following characters who are like competing to be a part of that. It definitely seems really interesting. Like, I am intrigued by that and might have to look more into it and pick it up myself. Next is Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. This is a contemporary fantasy, and it is about a ghost who refuses to cross over, and also the ferryman that he falls in love with. Like, that just sounds so cute. Oh my god, I really love that concept, and I know a lot of people really enjoyed, what was his first book? I mean, not his first book necessarily, but his other book that I can't think of the name right now, but there was also a lot of controversy surrounding it, although that one was really hyped up and talked about. But he does have another book, so we'll focus on that one. Next is Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. This, of course, is the latest release by Stephanie Garber, who's the author of Caraval, and this is about a girl whose father owns a curio shop, and she ends up, like, the love of her life is going to get married to someone else, so she makes a deal, and I mean, those things always go south. Next is The Four Winds by Kristen Hanna. So Kristen Hanna is the author of The Nightingale, of course, and numerous other historical fiction reads. I don't know if she really has anything contemporary, but I think they're all historical. The Four Winds is, I can't even remember. I had the audiobook for this one, but it's totally leaving my brain right now, sorry. Okay, I thought so, but I wanted to make sure. So it is actually set during the Great Depression, and I have never read anything set during that time period. I love The Nightingale, so I can understand why this is so hyped up, because she is an incredible author, but I think I'm gonna have to read this one soon. I have so many books to read. Next is People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. Emily Henry is the author of Beach Read, which came out with a splash last year, and this is her next novel in the adult romance genre, and I have read both of them, and I think this one definitely lives up to the hype. It was so good. It's about a travel writer, and it's a friends to lovers story, and it's absolutely adorable, but has a lot of substance to it too. It's just a really enjoyable read, so I see why people are talking about it so much. Next is Ace of Spades. So this is a book that I'm planning on ordering soon because I just am super intrigued by it, and it is a thriller. It's like dark academia, but it's with a shocking twist that offers some commentary on institutionalized racism, so I think this is going to be really interesting. Next is Defy the Night by Bridget Kmermer. This is one of those books where, like, I definitely have seen it around, definitely have known of it, but it hasn't really registered. and it definitely has been hyped up, but I just like, I can't explain it, but like I've seen it, but it's just, I don't know, for some reason it hasn't stuck in my brain. But Bridget Commermer is the author of A Curse So Dark and Lonely, which I wasn't the biggest fan of. However, I would be willing to try something new by her, so I might have to pick this one up as well. This is a fantasy series that is about a kingdom that is divided by corruption. And of course we have a prince who is risking everything to try and keep it together, and a girl who is also risking everything to try and like bring it all down. So that's intriguing. And the last book I wanted to talk about today is actually one that I didn't see many of you mention, but during the beginning of the year, it was really hyped up. And that is The Last Night at Telegraph Club by Melinda Lowe. So I myself have read this book and really liked it, but I had seen it floating around, and the reason I know it was so hyped up is because everyone was talking about it, and I had seen that, but I thought it was an adult book for some reason and just never really looked into it. Like, there's nothing wrong with adult books, it's just, it's not what I really gravitate toward, so I never looked into it. But then I found out it was YA and historical fiction and such an interesting concept, like I had to pick it up right away. So it is set in San Francisco, and you're following a young girl who is discovering her identity as a queer woman, and she is like learning more about queer culture during the 1950s. It's at the time of the Red Scare, so there's a lot going on, but it is such an incredible story. So I understand why it got so much hype. Okay, so those are all of the most hyped books of 2021. I feel like this list is a little bit shorter than past years in a way, but then at the same time, it is kind of long. But I don't know, I just feel like maybe it's because I'm so out of touch with everything that I haven't seen like so many books getting a ton of hype, except for like the very first one that comes to mind is The Love Hypothesis. So it's kind of interesting. It's probably because I'm not hanging out where it's cool to hang out anymore. Like, I'm not on TikTok, so I miss a lot of things. But thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed. Tomorrow for Bookmas Day, I think it's 15, I can't remember. Yes, for Bookmas Day 15 tomorrow, I'm going to be talking about books that I read this past year that surprised me and books that I read this past year that disappointed me. So if you don't want to miss that, don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you guys tomorrow in another new video. Bye!